Oh, you left?
He left. Hey, great arrow. That's awesome how he does it.
X, X, X.
Alright,
Ding.
let's not
Going
start. Let
Oh,
him
he's back.
join. Oh, he's right. Teach us.
XXX? Three X's?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. All
Let's
right.
do it.
So first thing I do is right hand, obviously, for the gun. Now, what I do is you want to make your hand flat, and you want your index finger to be over the trigger. And what I do is I go for a full grip at the beginning. And what I'm looking for is to make sure that the index finger is going to click the trigger. So it
Okay.
did. So I'm going to leave that hand and go to this hand. This and make sure that I'm now no longer holding the left button, because then that way when I go back to my gun hand, it'll stay gripped, but I don't have to hold the grip. Then I bring it up
Uh,
and I bring it so that the left side is kind of facing me a bit more like this, because then what I'm going to do is use my left hand. I don't move my left hand or do anything. I keep it flat, but I just use the thumb to go along the side of it to swipe down so that I hit the lever to open the chamber.
oh.
With me so far on that? Okay. So once that's down, I make sure you want to make sure all your bullets are still standing, because the easiest thing you can do is push the tip of the bullet forward so that it falls straight, because you want your bullets to be straight on your finger when you go to pick it up. What you do is you hold the F key for your index finger, keep it on the table, flush with the table, and go for the very bottom of the bullet. Then use your thumb. Bring your thumb in on it. Oops, I'm a little bit far away here. So that way then you've got the very end of the bullet. Once you've got the bullet in hand, you can release your thumb and the bullet will stay on the index finger. Now, holding down you have to hold down the finger, right? So to keep it bent. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump back over to my gun hand, and now I'll release the finger button. So that way I don't have to worry about holding the bullet in the hand when I go back. So now I'm back to my bullet hand, and I don't have to hold the finger key to keep it that way. Then my gun hand, I kind of aim a little bit away from me, like just to the right a little bit, so that it gives a little bit of an angle. It's kind of facing a little bit upwards. And it's easier if you do everything in front of you as close as possible so somebody doesn't hit your hand. So the gun's kind of angled like this in front of me. Then I go back to my bullet hand, and all I have to do is rotate my wrist. And see now the bullet, the way that it angles, is sitting on top of the tip of my finger. So not only can I see it really well, but it's pretty much almost perfectly lined up with the chamber. So if you've got your bullet and you get it like this, so that it's on that, so you can see over here. So the bullet, I'm trying to hold as little of the bullet as possible on my fingers, so most of it can go into the chamber, and it's aiming pretty much the same direction as my finger goes. And then all I have to do is you go for either the side, or the easiest one is the bottom chamber, and then you just push it right in so it goes about halfway in. And the good thing about this is that when I go to release my finger, the way that this is angled is that my finger's not going to flick the chamber when I release the bullet, so it won't bounce out. Because if you hit the chamber, it'll bounce the bullet. Oh, it did a little there, but... And then you just use your thumb to push in the remainder of the bullet.
Wow.
How do you get the
Then
chamber?
I'm not very good at closing the chamber with the other hand, so I usually just move my hand to the right and rotate the wrist to in a faster motion. Oops. In order to close the chamber. And there you go, you got a loaded gun.
That's the shit.
It's not going in.
Now, whoever's on my right, you want to open your chamber before you grab your bullet, right? Otherwise, it might be a little bit more difficult. I mean, you can still do it if you have your thumb out, Once you have the bullet, you can still do it. Remember, you want to swipe your thumb on the left side of the gun, right where the lever is there. All you have to do is have your thumb out and scroll down while your thumb along that lever and open up the chamber. Now, who's ever straight across from me, your bullet's aiming a little bit upwards. Rotate your thumb inwards a little bit more, and what that'll do is that'll cause the bullet to straighten out a little bit more. So you rotate your wrist so that your thumb comes down a little bit more. As you notice, see the bullet's kind of flattening out, and you can raise your hand that way. But the more you rotate your wrist out, the more that bullet will kind of flatten out rather than be upwards. It's a little bit more upwards, so you just have to kind of rotate your hand a little bit more to straighten your bullet out.
How is my chamber not coming out?
So who's talking?
Guy on your left.
Oh, flatten your hand. Keep it flat. Don't have it pointing up in the air. It's easier to see and do things when it's flat. Okay. So move towards you so you can see a little bit better. Like just rotate your wrist inwards so the gun points a little bit to the left. You just want to use the right and pull down. Right click and pull the mouse down a little, and that'll rotate your wrist inwards. Okay. Now just bring your left hand thumb, just bring it up to the side of the gun right above where that lever is. And then when it's at the top of it, all you got to do is use the wheel mouse. When it's alongside the gun, just use the wheel mouse to move downwards. Just keep pressure of your thumb against the gun and then just wheel mouse down on that lever.
Wheel mouse down.
There you go.
Nice.
And the one who's trying to pick up the gun on my right side, your hand is, your wrist is too far down, is why you're not getting a good grab. So let go of it for a sec. And what you want to do is bring your wrist up. Bring your hand flatter. You want your hand upwards more. So just hold down the right mouse button and move the mouse up a little bit more. Make your, a little bit much. There you go, flat. So now your hand's flat with the surface of the table. Now move it down towards the gun. Yeah, and try to get your index finger over top of the trigger. If you need to, you might have to rotate your wrist a little bit to the right so that it kind of flattens out a little bit more. But you're kind of in the ballpark.
Can you show me how you get the bullet? I
The
can't
bullet?
see.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll pick another one up here if you guys want to see that. So with the left hand, it's a little bit harder, but what I'm going to do is, since the bullet's upright, you just want to use the tip of your thumb on the tip of the bullet and just lightly push it forward so that it stays straight on the table like that.
Wait, stop.
Then you want to use your index finger as a guide. So you bend it first. Keep your index finger bent and just bring it up to the very bottom of the bullet on the side, as close as you can get without hitting it, because you don't want to knock it around, and then just close your thumb on it. Yeah, you might have to rotate your wrist a little bit if your thumb doesn't quite catch it.
I can't see him.
Move your gun.
Well, what I'll do is I'll pick it up and I'll move my hand over to the left. I'll put the bullet down and then do it again over there. Can you see a bit better from here?
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, it would be on the table like
I
this.
got it.
Yo, I think I got it.
So you just
No,
want to
I
make the bullet
shoot.
flat. So all you gotta do is push the bullet flat, just like it's flat right
I'm
now.
still learning, man.
Finger. It's bent right to the bottom of the bullet, like it is there. And then once you got it, then you close your thumb on it like that.
Whoa.
And pick it up.
Okay, I dropped it. So now. keep my hand next to the bullet. Keep my hand next to the bullet, and then I use my thumb.
Yeah, you gotta. You might have to move your wrist a little bit higher because you want the tip of your finger to basically be flush with the table. Not too much up. It wasn't a whole bunch up. So keep your finger bent because that's going to be your reference, right? There you go. Move it downwards.
Okay, so
If you
do
want
first
another
this
easy
one.
way to do it when starting out is pinch your fingers and then keep them pinched and go to the bottom of the bullet and place them over top of the bottom. That way you know that you're lined up to pick it up. Then all you have to do is release the buttons, move your hand down slightly, and then hit them again, and it should pick it up exactly where you placed it. Now you're a little bit high on the bullet there. If you did manage to pick that up, you don't want to have it as low as possible because the more bullet you're holding on to, the less you're going to be able to fit into the
I
chamber.
couldn't pick it up.
Yeah, you're too far into the table. Your finger's going into the table. You're too low. You've got to rotate your wrist a little bit more upwards. You're going to the table.
There, I got
There
it.
you go. And once you have it picked up, you can release your thumb. You can let go of space and it'll stay on the tip of your finger. And if you switch over to your other hand now, still holding the finger button, and then let go of the finger button, and then switch back to the other hand, you don't have to worry about holding the finger button.
Alright. Is this okay?
Yeah, the one on my right, rotate your wrist to the right, or to the left, sorry, so that the bullet lays on top of your finger. There you go. It's a little bit easier to see, and it lines it up a little bit better, plus your finger will miss the chamber when you go to release it, because you don't want your finger, because your finger's going to go outwards, and it'll flick the chamber if it's not in the right place. I should just start up a school for this game. start charging cigarettes and figurines.
It is easy.
You're not going to get the bullet all the way in, especially since that bullet, your finger's a little bit high on it. All you have to do is try and get most of it in, and then release it, but make sure that your finger's not going to hit, and then put the rest of the bullet in with your thumb. So don't move your hand away right away when you release your finger for the bullet when it's hanging in the chamber, and try to move your thumb as soon as you can without knocking the bullet, but move it behind it so that your thumb can then push the remainder of the bullet into the chamber.
Come on, get in.
Mine's not going in fully. Just the tip is going in.
What?
Just the tip of the bullet is in.
If the angle's off a bit, you might be trying to force it when it's not going to slide evenly in. You might have to just kind of try to adjust just in little bits to try and make it so that the angle works. Plus, your arms are fully extended, so you got to pull your gun and your bullet arm back in, because you can't push something in if you can't move your arm any further, right?
No.
That's why you want to try and start off with your gun in your hand closer to you. Plus, it'll keep from anybody else using their hands to knock your gun. nothing worse than getting the bullet there and you're just about to push it in with your thumb, and somebody throws their hand out and smacks your gun and smacks the bullet out of it.
I think that's what we tried to do.
The one on my guy on my right, you might have to pick that bullet up again. It's you've got so much of it on your finger that your finger, the